Hey everybody, Shawn here from the Sci-Fi Model Guy, and welcome to Chapter 2 of the U.S.S. Constellation damaged version from AMT. As a bit of a recap, this is a modified U.S.S. Enterprise kit, and we're doing some damage simulation to match the damage we see in the fan favorite show, the Doomsday Machine. That's from the original series of Star Trek. So, not too much to talk about in the intro, everyone. We're going to be looking at some of the damage techniques that were done, some of the things that I learned, and we're going to be talking about what's coming up in the future. So with that, enjoy this video, everybody. Happy modeling, and see you down the road. All right, everybody, have some updates here on how I'm going about doing some of this infrastructure stuff. So here are the nacelles, and I have already glued them. And as you can see here, there's some infrastructure girders, just type of things underneath the skin of the ship that I've put in here. So all this is here are some of these round styrene tubes I have here. They are 2 millimeter here, and I also have some just regular old styrene, very thin plastic. I think it's like 2 millimeter, but it's they're very slim and flexible. Sorry about that. And so what I did was I laid down these tubes here on the inside of the nacelle. I should have recorded this, so I apologize. But I just cut some of these lengths of the round styrene rods, glued them into place, and then behind them, I just put some of the styrene, I cut it to shape, and then used the Dremel and kind of scuffed it up a bit so it wasn't a flat little, like a straight edge there. And then I'll go through and damage this up some more, like twist it, melt it, and of course, paint it brown, weather it, and everything. So this is just the infrastructure underneath. I did a little bit of the same thing right here in the back for this hole, just 2 rods and some styrene. And then I went ahead and glued this up together. Now, one of the things I'm really liking about this build, because there's no lights in it, I'm able to glue all these things together, and then I'm going to sand it down really nice, get rid of these seam lines, and then prime and paint it. So that's going to be good. Then I don't have to worry about any wiring. I can just put these together and do it. So now to the other part. So on the the secondary hull, sorry. If you recall, I have these 2 giant holes here, and you can just see right through there the ship. So we're gonna have to fix that, put some more superstructure underneath there, the frames and everything. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to solve this problem? Because I obviously can't do it the same way these nacelles are, because the way that these halves go together, there's a seam here and a seam here. So I was able to just put the things on one side and glue this styrene underneath to fill that hole up. But because of the way the secondary hull is made, I cannot do that because it's top to bottom seams and it's not this way. So I have to find a way to fill this hole there. So trying to think about how to do this, and I decided to do it just on the top. Okay, so if you see here, I have a piece of the styrene that I have bent up. Now, in the previous sections, I was doing it with the hot boiling water, and I did manage to get some nice curves with that. So here, that's a sanding stick. This is a little bit of a curve, and we use that for the saucer section, which is coming along real nice. We're going to have some more videos about that later. So you can see here, I put these in there. They had a nice curve, and then I cut holes in them after gluing them up, and then I heated them up with a lighter and just enough to bend them and really contort them. So that's looking good. We're going to put a lot more detail in here as well as we move forward. So going back to the secondary hull here, these guys have a very tight curve on them because I have to have it to the curve of the ship, and it's small. So it's a very tight turn, and I had to make sure it's consistent with that curve to get it to fit correctly when I put these together. So you can see here I did do one, and it is flush. I'm going to hold it up here, and that's nice and flush there, so there's no gap there or anything. So now, how did I do that? That's what I want to show you. So again, I want to stress being careful if you are going to do this. You notice here I have a candle. And what I had tried to do before is I'd grab the, sorry about that. I would grab the piece that I wanted to turn with a little pair of pliers here. And then I have another pair of pliers right here. And I would just hold the lighter underneath the piece here like that, get it nice and hot, and then put it down real quick and grab this thing and turn it. Well, it allowed it to kind of cool off. So I thought, you know what, maybe I should try a candle. So be very cautious if you do this, everyone. I have this, it's a little tea light candle, and it's in a nice ceramic bowl for safety. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the little piece of styrene here that I have, and I have this here that I used with my protractor compass, and I drew it to the diameter of the ship with the, with this part. So this is the right diameter. So what I have to do is get these pieces to get into this curve. So the way I'm doing that is I am just taking one pair of pliers here, and I'm getting another pair of pliers here, and I'm going to hold it over the candle and then slowly start, sorry about that, I'm trying to talk and do this at the same time, and it's proving to be difficult for me right now. So I'm going to hold this over, and as I'm holding it over, I'm applying a little pressure here, and then I move it up. So it takes a few goes, and then I'll take it and I'll hold it up against this. And you can see here I have a little bit more to do. So it tends to crease in the middle. So what you end up having to do, I'm holding it in the middle now. Get it nice and warm. It does not, whoops, I dropped it in the wax. That's not good. Okay. It doesn't take long to heat this stuff up to where you can bend it. I think I may have started turning it the other way, so my apologies. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. And again, be very careful when you do it. You want to get your hand away from the candle because that heat will come up here. And it's getting there. I think what I did was I messed up and curved it one way, and then I curved it another. But that actually might turn out to be okay because it's twisted now. And that might add a little bit of realism here. So that's kind of run through my mind for a second, and that's why I didn't abandon this one. I'm going to curve it a little bit more right here. Sorry, I was off of camera. So I'm going to heat up that little corner. You want to put very little pressure on here when you're turning it, because I don't want to snap or break it. Okay. Move that candle out of the way, and let's take a look here and see what we have. So there you can see, I'm going to zoom in. I'm just about right there in line with that curve. So I think this one's good to go. So I'm going to take my ship here. This is going to take quite a while to do. So if you're going to do this method, make sure you have plenty of time. So I'm going to get a little bit of glue out of my bottle here. Zoom out. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, so I've got some glue on my little applicator here. I'm going to put a little bit there in the ship. set that aside, and then I'm just going to take this guy and lay it down like so, and then I'm going to get some of my accelerator. And it's oh, didn't quite dry yet. There it goes. That accelerator really does the trick. And then I'll give this a test fit. And there we go. So I'm going to continue to do this down the ship on both sides. And you can see there, I think it looks pretty cool. What about you? This is a superstructure, under supports, girders, beams. So these are going to be thick. And then I'll put some other little details in there, maybe with some of these rods. And, I'll of course fill the gap with the styrene. And we'll try to give it some texture in there, not just a flat thing. I'm going to do the same thing over here as well with the nacelles. And I'm going to also, of course, with the saucer section, we're going to put a lot of details in there. So, all right, everyone, that is it. Sorry for mumbling on that section, but I had to kind of concentrate, especially with some open flame right in front of me. Had to be a little careful. So that's that. And we'll get to, making sure that we fill all these seam lines and get no gaps. And I don't want to have like a hollow ship look to this thing. So, okay, hopefully this is going good. Hopefully you're all enjoying this. I really do. See you in the next segment. We're going to talk some more about the little details and things I'm doing here. All right, everybody, here we are with another section, and I've made a lot more progress here on the damage to the ship. So one thing I want to point out here is what I've done with these little guys here. So these are just some little square rectangle pieces of the very thin styrene that I've cut out. So there's one here, and I put one here, and they're all over the place. And some here, like that, and then a lot of them over here as well. So basically what I'm trying to emulate here are just little panels of metal, little sheets and things like that. And I know it looks a little bit funky here, especially because some of these are white, some of them are a little darker. And what that is I took the lighter and I glued some of these in place and just took the lighter and held it underneath and kind of waved it around and melted them slightly just to give them some distortion look. So here's one right here that I haven't done. So I'll just do a real quick. I'm going to do the lighter and just real briefly get it under there. And I don't let it sit too long because I don't want this stuff to catch fire or melt the hull too much. But you can see here, it has distorted this a little bit. Now, I will continue to say this throughout this video. Please be careful. When you burn plastic, you are releasing fumes into the air, so make sure you have a ventilated area, that you're wearing a mask, and the proper protection has been taken. So always make sure you have plenty of ventilation, everyone. Please, please, please. Anyway, so with that public safety announcement there, I want to talk a little bit about underneath the hull here. So you'll see here, I've added some kind of weird pieces of the styrene here, and I've done this kind of as a wall because when you put these together, you can kind of see into the ship a little bit, and not so much, but I wanted to just break it up and not make it just a big hollow void in there. So if someone were to come in there and look, they would at least have a wall or something to obstruct their view from seeing all the way to the other side of the ship. So that's the purpose of those. Right down here is some of the little flickering SMDs that I have. I've got one into the beam here that I used the pin vise to drill a hole through. So there's a nice little flicker coming right out of the beam there. And then there is another one coming through here. And I used fiber optic. So the actual lights are over here under this tape. And there's a fiber optic little wire that runs right through there. So the flickering is actually happening over here. One thing to point out is on the lights, I did cover them on both sides with the black electrical tape to block the light because I didn't want the little flickering coming through the hull. So I still might have to light block this in black. I think that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. So that will, just in case. But again, I only have 2 lights in here. So when I do paint it, I might just see where if there's any light flickering through and just give it a shot of black to cover it because they're very small. And I don't think it's going to be a problem. It's not like I'm lighting all these windows or anything. So what else we got here? So, another thing I did glue these together. But in the Bussard collectors here in the tip, let me see if I can... here, let me grab the flashlight for you. So if you look in there, you'll see there's some stringy things, and that is just some of the fiber optic cable. I don't think it's not cable, but fiber optic wire here. And all I did was I cut a little circle of thin styrene out of here, and I made sure it was to the circumference of this circle here, put it in there, glued it, and I drilled 8 little holes in each of these circles. I do apologize for not filming this, but I just drilled 8 little circles there and cut small pieces of that fiber optic and stuck it in there and glued it with some CA glue, super glue, and it's there. I mean, you have to really look hard to find it, but I didn't want there to be, again, I didn't want there to be nothing inside here. I want there to be something going on. So if someone were to kind of scrutinize it, they're like, oh yeah, there's some wires and cables and things going on inside there, and that's pretty interesting. So again, I just didn't want little empty voids in there. So there's that. This one is looking pretty good, and I still have to go and I have to distress this Bussard collector to match this damage. Just put some nicks in there. I'll do that with the sanding disc, and then we'll be rocking and rolling. So moving on to the secondary hull here. So this one here, if you look at it, it's kind of weird. It looks and reminds me of like a whale's body, because like layers of blubber or layers of things, and then the rib cage. It really kind of looks like a dinosaur or something. But I think this is how a ship would be built. You'd have support struts there inside the superstructure of the ship, and then, paneling and, hull bulkheads behind that. So that's what I did. So all I did here was I just glued, I think I recorded this. I have these little strips of the styrene, and I used the lighter to soften them, and then I bent them to the circle that I drew on the paper here. I made sure they fit that curve and glued them into place. Then what I did was I took some more of the very thin styrene and I cut these strips like this. And I just kind of glued them on and layered them one over the other. So it kind of looks like a window blinds or something, So that's how that's going to look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to glue these together. So I'm going to start with this side here because that's these two things connect. Over here I have a gaping hole. So that's the connector there. And then I'm going to have to kind of squeeze these ribs in to get a tight fit. And then what I'm going to have to do, because this thing, remember, is still warped a little bit, and you'll notice here, I cut the back off. I ended up having to cut the tail because there was just no way for me to get this thing to fit in one shot. So what I'm going to have to do is glue this into place in stages. So I'm going to start with this portion here because that gives me a nice flush connection there. I can get that matched. Then I'll go to this side and I'll do that. So I'm going to probably have to have someone help me, and I'm going to hold it together like this and then get some CA glue on or super glue and then brush it on the inside and outside and just hold it and hit it with my kicker and let it set and then let go, and then that should be enough to hold it. And then I'll continue on with the back end here, and I'm going to have to use quite a bit of the super glue, folks, because this, again, with these rib things here, there's putting a lot of pressure on it, and then this distorted back is also putting some pressure. And then when all that's set, then what I'm going to have to do is grab the back end of the lower half that I cut off. And I just did it with a sanding disc. So I'll glue that together, fill it with putty, sand it down, and it'll be nice and flush. We won't even really see that cut line. I mean, it looks horrible now, but it'll be fine. And that will be the last piece that I glue on the back. Other than that, I've I've drilled the hole here in the neck where it connects to the saucer section. I've drilled the hole here, so the wires are going to come through for these two little blinky lights there. And also I am going to be constructing the one light solution for the one impulse engine that's going to be glowing with a regular pulse, and that's back here. So I'm going to block out one of the sides, and then the other one is just have one light going. That'll just be a quick one light connection. I have some that do the pulsating effect, and once that's done, everything is going to be glued together. And at that point, I will start the painting process. So I'm not going to get into that in this section because I'm going to have to kind of come up with a plan. I have basically what I want to do in mind, but we'll get to that once everything's done, put together, sanded down, getting rid of all the seam lines. And of course, because, this kit is notorious for having bad seam lines. So I'm really going to take my time, make that smooth, make it nice, prime it, and then paint it. And then we'll do some further little add-ons here. For instance, once it's together, and this is like this, for instance, I'll cut some more little pieces of the paneling, put them there, maybe even some of the circular rods that are in the nacelles, maybe drop one or two of them in there, kind of like just extra details going on. And then distress those some and do the weathering painting and damage painting. And we're going to be going on. So it's coming along really good. It looks horrible now. I mean, it's a broken ship with somewhat dubious damage things going on. But once the little details are in and the proper painting colors and the undercoat, I'm going to do a lot of like silver, because this is going to be kind of like aluminum or steel, raw metal colors. We're going to expose some of that, show the little shiny metal undertones of that with the burn marks and everything. And it's going to look pretty cool, folks. I can already tell that this is coming along exactly how kind of I was hoping to. So, all right, everyone, long-winded discussion there, but this is where we are, and we'll catch you in the next section where we will show off some more progress. Okay, everyone, I've made quite a bit of progress here on the panel detail and the damage and everything, and I'm getting really close to closing her up here. So I just wanted to go over some of the last details. So I'm going to turn the light a little bit here so maybe we can see a little better. So done a lot of work here, especially on the secondary hull. As you can see, she's all glued together and ready to go. So on the sides here, I did cut out a few more pieces of very thin styrene, which is just this flimsy stuff, and cut little squares like little panels and glued them intermittently through here to give the model some depth. So we've got some paneling here, and then some girders, and then some paneling, bulkheads underneath. And so that gives this, multiple layers of detail. And I've done it on this side as well. Now you'll see a lot of these dark spots here. Now this is from a lighter, and I just held the lighter underneath it long enough to get these things to contort and melt a little bit. It happened extremely quickly. And if you are going to do this, please, again, ventilate your work area, wear a mask, and be extremely careful with what you're doing. Have a fire extinguisher on standby and all those things, because this will catch fire extremely quickly. So you have to be really ready and good to go. I can't stress that enough. Okay, so here on the back, I want to point out some things. I had to do a lot of sanding and everything. So if you recall, this ship, this Enterprise model, this bottom part of the secondary hull was extremely warped. And I tried some boiling method to straighten it out, which helped a little bit, but it just wasn't fitting snugly on the top part. This bottom half was one piece. So if you look here, you'll see these really ugly lines. And what I had to do was I had to cut this thing into multiple sections. So I first started cutting just the back half off and then gluing the front part on and then try the back. Even that wasn't fitting because these pieces, they weren't going flush, and then these weren't able to go flush. So I had to cut the back into 3 pieces. So I have one piece here, and then the shuttle bay doors there. And it was a pain, everyone. I got to tell you, I was starting to lose a little hope, then thinking that this wasn't going to work out. But after cutting it down, which does, reduce the amount of material on there, I was able to kind of get close enough fittings on here. So, but what I had to do, and I didn't record this, but I'll just kind of show you what I did. So on each of these pieces, I put let me get something to point with. I put a piece of styrene, one of these little pieces here, just like these little, same as I use for the girders, but I did straight. And I cut small pieces and I put them about like so on the inside to give something for this to attach to, because again, there's no stubs or anything where this bottom piece really grabs a hold of. So I had to kind of install these little pieces. So half of it is like on this side and half of it is on this side. And then, so I did one here and one here. So there's 2, and then glued it with super glue, not the model glue, but this super glue, which is the MaxiCure extra thick, and applied that with a little applicator and held it on there until it was sticking. Now, after that, there was still some very raised parts. So you can see here, well, you can't really see here because I sanded it down, but for instance, this part of it here was raised maybe a millimeter from the rest of the hull, and likewise over here. So it wasn't a flush fit because again, there was just subtle warps and twists in this thing. And the same is for this side as well. So I again put 2 pieces of styrene, one there and one there, held it, glued it, and then here there's a big chunk. So I kind of, if you look here, there's a pretty big gap there, and right here underneath there is a piece of this very flimsy styrene that I had to use to fill the gap with. So I kind of had to put a little gap filler there, and then once I got that in, I just filled it with super glue. It's just super glue in here that dried, and for the most part it filled the gap. And after that, I took the Dremel tool, and with the attached sanding disc here, I have a couple different grits of paper, but this is a pretty rough one, and I just went around all over all of these lines, and it took me about an hour or so. I didn't want to get it too fast and melt the plastic, so I had to do a little bit at a time, scrape some off, and then ultimately I got it to be pretty flush, and I was more or less happy with it. So now I'm going to be doing the putty work on here and then sanding that down further and getting that as flush as I can, and hopefully it will turn out. I'm pretty confident it will. I got a little bit of a hole there to fill, and it should be fine. All the little panel work and extra details are done on the nacelles, and I went ahead and spray painted on the inside black. So I just took my spray can and just shot black straight into the nacelles in the back here, and that way it kind of gives you don't see too much in there because it's hollow. Again, I put some of those little fiber optic lines in there to give something in there. So like if someone were to take a flashlight or catch it at the right angle, you will see a little something in there, but I wanted it to be nice and dark. So again, the trick is to make it so that you don't see the hollowness of the ship. And again, going to here, I put these little walls here so that you don't see all the way to the other end. I put a few extra little pieces of the girder, the styrene here for some detail on the other side of these holes here, so that when you look in, there's a little bit something on the other side as well. And there we go. That hole lines up, and So everything's looking pretty good. I've got panel lines on the, not panel lines, I'm sorry, but little panels and pieces there and everything. It doesn't look like much now, but when I get all this painted with a silver undercoat and do the spray paint hairspray technique, hairspray and salt technique on some of these that I'm going to demonstrate later on, you'll see. So the detail will be a little bit in here, and then with the painting is going to take care of the rest of the appearance. And of course, we have the flickering lights going on in here. There's one going fiber optic going into this piece there, and there's another one going into this piece. And I just taped them down with some electrical tape there, and that's just to prevent any light from coming out. I'm still going to light block the inside of this black just in case, even though I only have two tiny little lights here, and I have the impulse engines, which I will talk about now. So the impulse engine goes right here. So when the saucer's together, these little nubs here fit to the top of this piece there. And if you recall, I did say I'm going to have only one of these impulse engines working, and it's going to be pulsating because it's not working correctly, and the other one's going to be, you know, just off, blacked out. So I went ahead and masked. There's two little squares on here. I don't know if you can kind of see that in the light, but there's one impulse engine there and one there. So I masked this, and then I drew these little lines on the top, and then so I could kind of find out where the opposite side was. And I've masked the inside as well. So the next step I'm going to do here is I'm going to spray the entire thing black and light block this entire thing. And then, just to be on the safe side, I will take some pieces of styrene. Well, in fact, I'll do that now before I paint it, rather. So I'm going to take some of these little pieces and glue them in here to give some more light blocking with the plastic. So it's actually one, looks like it'll do it. And once I get that done and spray paint it black, then it'll just be a simple matter of gluing the light, finding the light, and just securing it to kind of come through this hole, cut off this little nub there, and then I can glue this thing on, and then it'll be a nice pulsating light when we get this all together. So it'll look like a kind of a malfunctioning impulse engine. So that's going to be it. So that's it on this kit, everybody. Just 3 lights. That's all I decided to do. I didn't want to do all these little sparks and things. Again, subtlety is kind of where I've been trying to go with most things, because I do tend to overdo stuff sometimes. So my goal, oh, there, that's perfect size. My goal a lot of times is just to go as subtle as I can, and then at the end it works out just fine. So again, that's why I'm not doing too much with the details on these panels and stuff. I'm not doing hundreds of little tiny pieces. Like if you were to zoom in on the special edition or the enhanced special effects version of the Doomsday Machine episode, you'll see just superb detail. And maybe I'll just throw up a picture here on there, and you can see here all this exquisite detail that they did. So I'm not going to that extent because I just don't have the pieces or the time or the skill or the patience. Take your pick. I mean, two out of 3, if I don't even try it. So, but nonetheless, I think it's still going to look mighty good. So, okay, as I've been talking, I just went ahead and light blocked where this other engine is right here, just to prevent any accidental lights from getting through there. I want that to be completely black. So, alrighty, that's it for now. I'm going to go ahead and install this stuff. It's pretty easy. The flickering light is just one of these little kind of an 0805 SMD. They're very small. We've seen those before. That's a simple install. And I'll just put that on here, and then we'll close it up and put the wires through. Just link them up here, the 3 wires, get them down there, and we'll be good to go. And then I can put the ship together. So we're moving along, everybody. So we'll see you in the next segment. Everyone, I'm getting ready to do some sanding. If you can tell, I'm not in the shop right now. I'm in the house. You can see my computer keyboard there. And I've done the putty work on this, and I just wanted to show this before I started. And I did all of the seams here, and it did lay it on a little bit thick in some places. And that is because I just want to make sure and get a really nice finish on this. So there's the side of the ship along with where the hull meets the deflector array, and I did both sides of the warp nacelles here, and you can see there's these little gaps that have the holes for the little outcropping pieces that go there, and then there's the inside. So and then on the bottom here is where I had showed previously where I had to kind of cut this back piece into 3 separate pieces and then put it back together, and did quite a bit of sanding and grinding that down to get it as flush as I possibly could. And we're going to finish it up with the putty. So I wanted to take a minute here and just talk a little bit about the sanding, because I haven't done too much of that on the channel yet. So right here is a brand new pack of sanding sheets that I picked up at Hobby Lobby, I think it was. And it's here's the info. It's alphaabrasives.com. Use wet or dry. And it's the neat thing is that they are washable and reusable. So if you are sanding stuff and get some paint on here, you can rinse them off and get some of that dust off and keep using the product. So that's pretty cool. A lot of people don't know that. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the grits that I'm going to be using here. So the sheet comes from ranging from 150 grit, which is very coarse, all the way up to 1,000, which is very, very smooth. So I'll run my finger over that, and you can hear it's very, very light. But if I go down here to the 150, it's quite coarse. So 150 is actually pretty abrasive. So I've decided on here, I'm going to go with a 600 grit right here, which is actually, when you compare them, 600, if you were doing wood or something, it'd be very fine. But since we're doing something that I've already sanded down, is already very, very smooth, we don't want to get too abrasive. So I'm going to start with the 600 just to knock down this stuff here, and then I'll finish it with the red sheet, and then maybe coat it off with some of my sanding sponge, which is, I don't know the exact grit of this. I wish it had it printed on the back because I'd cut it off. But it is pretty smooth, and it does get this to a very nice smooth finish on the ship there. Sorry about the camera shot angle. And so I just wanted to take a quick minute and talk about that. So I'm going to be going ahead and doing this. And one of the keys I've learned when you're doing some sanding is to make sure you go slow. You don't want to, at least when you're coming to this part of it, when you put your putty on and you're trying to remove your seam lines, go very slow. Don't try to get this all done at once. You're going to use some very light pressure on a very light grit paper so that you don't scratch anything or don't knock off too much of the putty and then end up having to come back over it. So I'm going to go ahead and start this, and we'll come back when it's all done and we'll see what she looks like.